Welcome to Planetterrian Daily, episode 117 for July 11th, 2026. Here's your science and health briefing. A plastic bottle cap recovered near Japan carried 307 marine organisms, including a worm species new to those waters. Researchers recovered a plastic bottle cap near southern Japan and combined label data, chemical signatures in shells, and ocean current models to reconstruct its path. The cap hosted 307 organisms from multiple species. When ecosystem engineers colonize such debris, entire micro-communities can move long distances. The work, published in Marine Pollution Bulletin, highlights risks of invasive species spread and consequences for marine biodiversity conservation. A new worm species was among those documented on the recovered item. Researchers documented that each pregnancy rewires the brain differently, with second pregnancies showing changes separate from those seen after the first. The distinct patterns may help explain variations in maternal mental health outcomes, including peripartum depression. The findings point toward improved recognition and treatment approaches for women after later births. The work shows that neural reorganization follows unique sequences rather than simple repetition across successive pregnancies. These observations come from direct comparisons of brain imaging data collected before and after multiple births. Now, from maternal brain plasticity to broader evolutionary constraints on human physiology. The second pregnancy brain study shows that each pregnancy produces its own pattern of neural reorganization, rather than repeating the same changes. These distinct rewiring events could explain differences in vulnerability to peripartum mood disorders across successive births. The work opens a path to more precise identification of women who might benefit from targeted mental health support after later pregnancies. Specific brain networks change between first and second pregnancies in ways that alter how researchers interpret peripartum mental health risks. The pattern suggests that support strategies may need adjustment depending on birth order rather than applying uniform approaches. Human anatomy reflects evolutionary compromises rather than optimal design. Structures including the spine, eyes, teeth, pelvis, and certain nerves show trade-offs that supported survival but increase vulnerability to pain and disease. Features such as the appendix and ear muscles persist because they never imposed strong enough fitness costs to be eliminated. The pattern illustrates how evolution modifies existing forms instead of redesigning from scratch. The spine carries legacies from four-legged ancestors that contribute to common back issues in upright posture. An eye contains roughly 126 million photoreceptors, yet retains a blind spot where the optic nerve exits. You've probably heard that the human body is a masterpiece of engineering. In reality, evolution works with whatever came before, layering new functions onto old structures rather than starting from scratch. Right now, as you sit or stand, your spine carries the legacy of a body plan first shaped for four-legged movement, which helps explain why back pain is so common. The practical takeaway is to treat persistent pain in the back, knees, or pelvis as a signal of these built-in compromises rather than assuming perfect design. Physicists created a two-dimensional quantum material predicted over a decade ago. Researchers synthesized the long-sought material and verified its unusual conducting edge states. Strain can be used to control those states. The platform shows promise for room-temperature quantum electronics. The synthesis confirms theoretical predictions that had remained untested for more than 10 years. Edge state behavior remains stable under the applied strain conditions used in verification experiments. Applying an electric field to certain ceramic materials increased directional heat conduction nearly threefold. The effect allows heat to move preferentially along chosen axes. The finding could support more efficient cooling systems and energy-saving devices that rely on controlled thermal transport. Laboratory measurements confirm the tripling of heat flow along the selected direction. The ceramic composition permitted the field-induced anisotropy without structural damage. Devices exploiting this property could reduce energy losses in thermal management applications. Northwestern medicine researchers identified a previously unknown strategy that Neisseria gonorrhoeae employs to evade host immunity and establish widespread infection. The work was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Untreated gonorrhea can lead to infertility, sepsis, and pregnancy complications. The mechanism involves molecular interactions that prevent effective immune recognition. Laboratory assays demonstrated that the strategy operates during initial colonization stages. The discovery adds a new target category for potential intervention research. Now, from fixed anatomical compromises to how living systems respond dynamically to temperature and stress, biologists at the University of Massachusetts Amherst found that grasses, which supply most human and livestock calories, follow temperature cues for growth instead of the light-driven patterns seen in other plants. The results appear in current biology. This difference affects how major crops such as corn, wheat, and rice respond to changing climates. The temperature-driven mechanism was identified through controlled growth experiments that isolated light and heat variables. Predictions for crop yields under future warming scenarios will need revision based on these temperature priorities. Researchers documented a new fossil goose that revises New Zealand bird evolution timeline. Discovery of an unknown fossil goose indicates that the country's giant flightless geese descended from more recent arrivals than previously thought. The evidence points to a more dynamic evolutionary history for New Zealand's avian fauna. The specimen provides morphological traits linking it to later colonization events. Prior timelines assumed earlier divergence based on limited fossil records. The revised chronology alters interpretations of island biogeography for multiple bird lineages. University of Glasgow geoscientists contributed to evidence that topography at the plateau's highest points results from processes occurring deep within Earth. An international team of Chinese and UK researchers documented the connections. Deep Earth processes shape the Tibetan Plateau summit through mantle dynamics and crustal interactions. The findings integrate geophysical data from multiple measurement campaigns across the plateau. Surface elevation patterns align with subsurface models rather than solely with surface erosion. The collaborative analysis covers both the highest summits and surrounding topographic features. Now, from plant climate responses to how dietary fiber shapes gut ecosystems under modern conditions. In animal studies, fiber-rich diets kept intestinal worms active and supportive of anti-inflammatory responses, while low-fiber diets induced a hibernation-like state that removed those benefits. Fiber also promoted greater gut bacterial diversity. Western-style diets reduced microbial variety and favored less beneficial microbes. The findings come from direct comparisons of worm activity and microbial composition across controlled diet groups. High-fiber conditions maintained the worm's anti-inflammatory contributions without requiring additional interventions. During the 2022 drought and heat wave in China's Yangtze River Basin, natural forests showed greater resilience than planted stands. The comparison provides direct evidence on how forest origin influences survival under combined heat and water stress. Natural stands maintained higher survival rates when both temperature and moisture stress occurred simultaneously. The data were collected across multiple sites in the basin with matched climate conditions but different forest establishment histories. Planted forests experience greater mortality under the same event. Moderate warming alters 1/3 of a microalga's genes. Chlamydomonas reinhardtii changed activity of roughly 1/3 of its protein-coding genes even under moderate temperature shifts. The study, published in The Plant Cell, was conducted by researchers at Friedrich Schiller University Jena and the Leibniz IKRUV. The scale of the response suggests broad effects on aquatic and soil ecosystems under climate change. Gene activity shifts occurred across multiple functional categories rather than isolated pathways. Adjusting the number of bubbles inside each droplet altered the final printed pattern without leaving chemical residues. The approach offers a cleaner route to patterning next-generation devices such as flexible electronics and sensors. Ultrafine bubbles improve inkjet printing for electronics by changing droplet dynamics during deposition. Bubble count directly influenced line width and uniformity in printed features. The method avoids post-processing steps that typically introduce contaminants. Researchers tested the technique across multiple substrate types used in sensor fabrication. MIT-led work identified a straightforward adjustment that lengthens the operating life of LEDs made from glowing quantum dots. The improvement supports development of brighter, more energy-efficient displays and lighting for consumer electronics and medical devices. Simple change extends lifespan of quantum dot LEDs through modification of the surrounding matrix. Device testing showed extended operational hours before luminance drop-off. The adjustment maintains quantum dot emission properties while reducing degradation pathways. The approach applies to both display panels and biomedical imaging components. Now, from gene-level responses to ancient DNA revising assumptions about family burials. A Stockholm University study published in Science Advances analyzed DNA from graves previously assumed to contain family groups. Many adult child burials did not reflect biological relatedness, challenging long-standing archaeological interpretations. The analysis examined multiple medieval Scandinavian sites with previously categorized grave groupings. Genetic results showed non-biological pairings in a substantial portion of the examined burials. Before we go, keep an eye on further work examining temperature-driven gene shifts in additional aquatic species. That covers today's science and health news. Share this with someone who's curious about the latest research. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. See you next time. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at NARA Network. Links in the show notes. And before you go, this show is part of the NARA Network, a family of daily podcasts on tech, science, and markets. Each one a short, sharp briefing you can finish on the commute. If today earned its place in your feed, here's your next listen. Modern investing techniques, modern strategies for Canadian and US investors. Find every show free at naranetwork.com. Prefer reading? Today's full write-up, sources, and transcript are on the episode blog at naranetwork.com. Same briefing, readable format. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.